Hello. All right, a client lab review. This is a client that came to me who has been struggling, I would say, the last year or so with a lot of bloat, just not feeling good, lack of motivation to exercise, to just do a lot, and kind of anxious, maybe a little depressed, just low motivation for life. This client does have a very heavy stress load right now, an external work-related stress load as well, which doesn't help anything, and we'll see some of that stress in the labs. But this client was struggling, had gone to all these different people to try and get answers, wasn't getting any answers. So we ran a full blood panel and I got a lot of answers basically on what is going on. All right, so let's get started here. First page is up here. This is the CMP. This is where we see glucose, insulin, A1C, and anything related to the liver and kidneys. So first off, we see that glucose is high. It's at 90 and it has elevated since the previous read that this client had done. Hemoglobin is at a 5.3. So that's still within normal ranges, but we're moving to the higher side. But the kicker is, and again, why you want your insulin tested, not just fasted glucose, is their insulin is 14.9. Her insulin is 14.9. Technically, 15 is considered pre-diabetic or diabetic. So insulin is pumping a lot to try and maintain normal glucose levels, okay? So this is why you can have a normal glucose read if you're just doing fasted glucose read, but insulin can be working overtime to secrete to keep that glucose at 90 or less, okay? So insulin's at 4.9. We know something is going on here. We're over secreting. We've got some issues. And this is definitely going to contribute to some of that bloating feeling that this client is having because we got some gut health issues going on with food choices, stress, etc. Okay, we see the albumin is high. Not really worried about that. If you come down, when we go down a little bit further, you'll see a couple other flags on the CBC, her blood count. She's recently coming over COVID, so I'm going to attribute those types of things to that. All right, coming down here to sex hormones, okay? Next page. Her free testosterone actually looks really good. She's got a good amount of testosterone, but there's a couple flags here. The FSH to LH ratio is a little bit off, and then her estrogen to progesterone ratio is off as well. She is estrogen dominant, which matches with a lot of the symptoms that this client is having, why she signed up to work with me in the beginning. This client's experiencing hair loss, low mood, low energy, anxious, she has had an ablation in the past, so we know she's estrogen dominant because of heavy bleeding, and that's why you have an ablation, and heavy bleeding is due to low progesterone and high estrogen. So we know this has been going on. I think she had the ablation 2 years ago, so we know this hormonal imbalance has been going on for a few years now. And again, hormones travel in packs, right? So we've got insulin off, we've got estrogen off, we've got progesterone off, we've got some issues going on here. If we go down, we look at thyroid. Overall, the thyroid as far as TSH, T3, and T4 looks pretty good. The kicker here is her reverse T3 is very elevated. This is when our body is under stress. Our reverse T3 will increase. And why it increases is it's the body's way of trying to conserve energy, okay? Free T3 is the active hormone in the body, all right, that is released, that helps to control cardiac, respiratory, metabolism, body temperature, like all of those kind of things. So when the body is under chronic stress due to hormonal imbalance, life, work, whatever it may be, poor sleep habits, this client also has poor sleep habits, the body will try to conserve energy. That's the body's first response. So what it will do down the chain, it goes from TSH to T4 to T3 to oversimplify this. Instead of going from TSH to T4 to T3, it will go TSH, T4, reverse T3, because reverse T3 is an inactive form of the hormone, meaning it cannot be used for metabolic processes. trying to conserve energy is what the body is doing. Okay. We want to see this number typically not over 15, and she's at 23.5. So we know that stress is high in this body. Inflammation is high in this body, and we've got to get stress management and bring some tools in to help improve this and make this client feel better. All right, going down, this is what I was talking about. We see hemoglobin and hematocrit are high. Hemoglobin is a representation of the amount of blood cells that we have. Hematocrit is the blood cells, basically. Again, an oversimplified version. Those are both elevated, showing that there's possibly some kind of infection going on. There could be a little bit of a gut infection or a gut dysbiosis going on as well with those numbers, but she is also just coming off of COVID, so you know, it's hard to call on that. I think those things will resolve themselves, especially once we get insulin and estrogen in a better spot. We see that the LDL is high. Typically see that. If we see insulin elevated, we see cholesterol high as well, because when we have insulin being secreted in the body, it can have an effect on the amount of cholesterol being secreted in the body. And we see those numbers elevated because the cholesterol is not being metabolized and used properly either. So that's very common to see those two together. So with this client, what we're going to work on is stress management, incorporating a lot of warm baths, walks, breathing techniques, podcasts, meditation, and a few other things to try and change mental patterns, thought patterns, and habits, and responses to triggers of stress. Then the two big dominoes are estrogen and insulin that I'm going to go after first. So I'm going to get her on some supplementations and a protocol, changing up food, pulling, like she loves Starbucks, we're pulling Starbucks. They're finding the sources that are driving these insulin numbers up. Get her on some supplements, one being DIM to help make sure that the excess estrogen is trying to be funneled down the least toxic pathway of excretion, some calcium D-glucarate, which helps to break down the excess estrogen. Got to get her on some support for the liver, getting her on some vitamin B, C, and D, some magnesium and zinc, again, all to help promote a hormonal balance and support the body and the liver and the gut during this process. And then, like I said, changing up diet. And then I've got her walking every single day, and we're going to get a little bit of some strength training in. I think mentally we need some kind of exercise to come in to help elevate her mood and change her mindset, because she's feeling pretty down, pretty frustrated with all of this stuff, understandably. So we're going to try and do some things to elevate her mood a little bit and improve insulin levels, because resistance training is great for improving insulin sensitivity. So we're going to bring in just a little bit of that and then continue with the walking, and then getting her outside and just doing some things to help alleviate some of this stress, while we're working on trying to bring those hormones back to an optimal level and improve digestion, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she's got a lot going on, but all not easily, it's a lot of work, I shouldn't say, but all can be reversed, fixed, et cetera. She can feel better. It is going to take some time to do that. And just have to be adherent and compliant to the program and follow the guidelines set, in order to get there. But once clients start feeling better, they typically start feeling better 2 to 3 weeks in. They are much better at being compliant and adherent to programs because they're feeling good. They know that it's working. That in and of itself is a driver to continue on the path, because they want to feel better and better, right? So, all right, thanks for joining me. You can find all the information on my programs at CynthiaWilliamsWellness.com. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, all of that kind of stuff, all at CynthiaWilliamsWellness.com, where I have other client lab reviews, and just try to post a ton of educational information as much as I can, especially on Instagram and Facebook, talking about ways that you can improve gut health, ways that you can improve progesterone levels, decrease estrogen levels, have better hormone balance, ways to feed your gut properly, ways to help reduce bloating, whatever it may be, just any of that kind of stuff, just trying to provide information to help. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.